You're listening to the Just Sayin podcast, offering conversations with experts that will educate, inform, and entertain. Here's your host of the Just Sayin podcast, Charlie Cornacchio.
How many of you have been on a cruise? Would you like to go on a cruise? Well, we're not giving away cruise tickets today, but we can give you the inside scoop on some of the behind the scenes things that you don't see or things to look for on your next cruise, because today we talk with a cruise ship performer, Lauren Moore. Lauren was a performer on the Norwegian Cruise Lines before COVID shut down the industry. And she has seen some interesting things and tidbits that she's going to share with us about the cruise ship industry. Lauren, hi, how are you? Great to see you.
Hi, I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
We talked on the phone a little bit before we actually got together, and some interesting things that really, from your perspective, is really, pretty interesting. I thought interesting. I thought our listeners and our viewers would find it interesting as well, because of the fact that, you have a vantage point that a lot of us don't have, So let's first set the stage with your background. You're a graduate of Penn State.
Yep.
With a degree in musical theater.
Mm-hmm.
You teach voice and audition training
Mm-hmm.
in New York City. That's where you are.
Yes, I'm in Washington Heights.
In Washington Heights. Oh,
I
Washington
am.
Heights. Yeah.
I love Washington Heights.
So many, famous people have come from Washington Heights,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wrote Hamilton, literally lives like 2 blocks away from me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We go to the same pizza place.
Have you ever run into him?
Yeah, I've seen him at a restaurant or two.
Did you ever start singing an audition?
Oh my gosh, no. Oh, maybe I should.
Where it happened.
I'm in the room where it happened.
Anyway, so you've got a pretty extensive background. You've got great training and everything else. Mm-hmm. What led you to the cruise ship industry?
The cruise gig kind of came out of nowhere. I was doing a show. I was doing Mamma Mia in Florida, and during our tech rehearsal, which is when we tech the show, we put the lights on, the costumes on. It's the week before the show opens when we have an audience. I got a phone call from a director who is actually a Penn State grad, and he was working on a production called Havana on Norwegian Cruise Lines. And he called me and he said, "We had a girl drop out last minute. Would you be interested in sending in an audition tape?" And he was also working with a pretty well-known Broadway director. He was his assistant at the time, Warren Carlyle. So I was like, for sure, I should definitely be auditioning for him. And I ended up getting the part, and I left the Mamma Mia show early. And literally within 24 hours, I did a show at 7, finished at 10, and then packed my bags and overnight drove to Tampa. I was in Fort Myers at the time, drove to Tampa, and then started rehearsals the next morning. I didn't know much about the cruise world. I got to their headquarters, their rehearsal headquarters in Tampa. It's just this massive warehouse where they have this huge room full of costumes. There's multiple ships rehearsing there. So it was kind of a whirlwind, and we were doing a brand new show. So it was pretty intense.
So how long was your contract for?
So my contract was about 7 months, and we rehearsed for a month in Tampa before we went to Bremen, which is where the ship was originally built and docked.
Yeah, now that's the interesting part, because typically, a cruise performer will just go on the ship and go. But your ship wasn't even built yet.
No. Yeah.
So it was brand new.
Brand new. Not only that, but the shows were new as well. So I was in 2 shows. I was in a show called Havana, and I was in a show called Prohibition. And both shows, it was the first time that they were ever done on a ship. And then we also had Jersey Boys on the ship. And Jersey Boys, this was the first time that they were ever going to do the production on a cruise ship. Of course, Jersey Boys is done off Broadway, but they've never done it on a cruise ship. And the ship is literally still covered in plastic. Everything is still being built. The chandelier, in the main lobby was still being brought up. The cabins weren't done yet. So that was a really interesting, I got the full experience of what it's like to be on a brand new ship and kind of just like starting anew with the Norwegian Bliss, which it was the Bliss ship.
A lot of people don't realize maybe that you go to see a show on a cruise ship. It's not like seeing a show off Broadway, on Broadway, in your regional theater, because the ship is moving.
Yeah.
so that means the props, the stage scenery is moving if it's not locked down. Was yours locked down?
Yeah. So
did it move during a performance?
It did. So we had these like massive staircases in Havana, like really big staircases that these big muscly Brazilian men had to like push around. These incredible like fit dancers. They're so strong, but they had to like move these set pieces. And I remember more than one occasion, because we were on there for months, we hit some rough terrain, and literally if those staircases weren't like really locked in, they would start shifting like across the stage. There were times where I had to stand on the stairs and I would literally feel it moving, and they told me to sit down. They're like, if that ever happens, because like you'll fall off the stairs, just like sit down, like crouch down. It was so bizarre. I've never had to experience something like that. Also, being on a stage and just standing in general, you'll catch yourself just kind of like falling over a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I could imagine. But when I think of a cruise ship, they talk about the fact that it's so calm. You don't even know that you're on a ship. But that's not really the case, is it?
It depends on where you are. We were everywhere. Like the seas were different when we went from like the Caribbean in that area to when we were in Alaska. I mean, Alaska, the waters are very, very calm, but we were also going through the Panama Canal. And so in that area, when we were in Puerto Vallarta, we were in Mazatlan, we were in Guatemala, those definitely had a little bit more storms. Things were a little bit choppier down there, but kind of just depends on where you were. In Miami, it was pretty choppy around like the summer season.
Time of year has a big influence on it as well. For
sure. And we hit a little bit of everything. So we were kind of trying to be mentally prepared for when we knew things were going to be a little choppier.
What a lot of people don't realize, there is a whole underground where you guys kind of go after the show, right? I mean, that's kind of where you guys live and where you eat and where you sleep and all that.
Yeah. For guests, the ship is very mapped out. You know exactly where things are. There are arrows pointing, and anyone who's there can tell you where things are. When you go underneath, it gets very confusing. So there's a path called I-95 where it's just underneath. It's the crew area. So it's just one long hallway underneath, which is where they store the luggage. And so you can use that to get from the front of the ship to the back of the ship. But then there are like different stairwells that are super confusing. And I've got lost finding my room for a long time because everything kind of looks the same. It's all just kind of white. It's interesting. And there is a crew, they call it crew mess, which is where you eat. And as someone who has dietary restrictions, I have celiac disease, so I'm gluten-free. It was a little tricky because the food that was down there is very different. There's a lot of Filipinos on the ships, people from the Philippines, and they would make food that is from their country, obviously. It's just a whole other world down there.
What about the living conditions? I mean, did you have multiple roommates or was it just you in a room?
It depended on your role in the show that you were doing. So for me, I had a petty officer cabin, which is a twin bed and a small bathroom. There's no window. So it was on the inside of the ship. And then an officer cabin is full bed, and then they have like a couch and a big like window. There were people who shared a bathroom, and they had, I mean, it was a closet size room. It was big enough to fit a tiny twin size bed. And then they shared a little bathroom, and they called it a shoilet. The toilet and the shower overlapped. So you literally would like have to kind of stand up against the toilet So take a shower.
Oh man. Wow.
Yeah, so they called it a shoilet.
Well, they've got to make every inch of space usable, I guess, right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's all for making more space for the guests. I
Mm.
mean, like the cruise industry, when they tell you that the guest comes first, they're not exaggerating. Like the guest always comes first, and they will do whatever they need to do
Right.
on the ship to make the guest more comfortable
Mhm.
and to give them like a great experience on their 7-day, 14-day trip.
Well, let's talk about being a guest on a cruise ship. And there are people who are pros at this now. They've done so many cruises. They know the little ins and outs and things you got to do.
Yeah.
What are a few tips that people could learn from you, being an insider, of things they should know if they're just going on a cruise for the first time or the second time to make it a better experience for them?
I think, doing as much research before you get on the ship, knowing the ports that you're going to, knowing kind of like what restaurants are on there, what excursions are on there. Like when my parents came on, I knew exactly like what restaurants were great and like the right times that you should go. So we literally, like the minute that they walked on, we went to the little kiosk, which was on, they now have like on the wall, there's these touch screens where you can make reservations for everything on the ship. And I was like, you got to do that right away, because once you are settled into the cruise, you forget about it. And you think like, oh, I'll just like make a reservation the night before. On a cruise, there's so many people who want to do that you just, if you want to get your spot, like right away, making those reservations. And just also, like, what do you want on your experience? Like, do you want to go to restaurants? Do you want to just spend the whole time in your room, like ordering room service? That's cool too. I think it's just kind of like preparing yourself for once you step on, setting your week, and then you won't have to worry about it anymore.
So the best thing to do is once you get on is to just get everything planned out. Make your reservations for your restaurants early and for any of the activities early, so that you don't get locked out, and just get that out of the way. And then you can enjoy the rest of your cruise, I guess.
For sure. And then from there on out, you're just relaxing. Everything is all set for you, and you can just enjoy your free time in the hot tub on the top of the ship. My mom did not leave her hot tub. She loved her hot tub.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
She found this like corner hot tub. It was all the way in the back of the ship, right near the horn when they leave, this like big horn. So that's why no one was in there, because she was like, oh, whatever, it's gonna scare me for a second, but I'm just gonna chill here.
Right. There are some contracts for performers where you just do your thing, and then you've got all this time to kind of hone your skill, network with other people, learn a language, learn an instrument. There's a lot of different things you could do. And there are other contracts where you have to do other things besides perform.
Yeah.
Which kind of contract did you have?
Luckily, we did not have that one. We had all of the free time that we needed in between shows. So it was different per show. Seeing that I was in 2 different shows, I didn't really have that much free time. I did shows 5 to 6 times a week. So we had about 1 day off. But I had friends who were on other ships, and they had other crew duties. Like one of my friends worked in the library. I don't even know if we had a library, but she had to work at the library.
I think part of being on a cruise in your capacity is networking as well with the other performers, with people on the cruise, if you're allowed to kind of commingle with them. Were you allowed to commingle with the...
Yeah, so especially in the beginning, because we were the inaugural cruise. So we were the first cast, especially when we were in New York, a bunch of like big producers, big directors. Frankie Valli came on to see Jersey Boys.
Oh, wow.
Like we crossed paths with people. I mean, we weren't really allowed in the guest areas, but when people came backstage after the shows, it was really great to like get to know them a little bit. So that was like a great experience that not a lot of people get. Usually it's you jump on, you do your show, but you don't really get to meet the creatives or meet people who are interested in like seeing the show for the first time. For guests, it was a really great networking experience. There are some guests that I still keep in touch with who have seen the show. They're not really like in the industry, but they are in support of the arts. And for me, I mean, that's just as important as someone who is in the arts. I mean, people who just support us and see the shows, I mean, it can't work without that.
So 6 months, 7 months, 9 months, however long it is, that's a long time. Was it tough to adjust once you got off?
It was a tough adjustment going on. It was something that I really haven't been used to. You know, I performed on land for a long time. My family could come see the shows whenever they wanted. Right. You know, I could take breaks and see my friends and family whenever I wanted. And you don't really have that luxury when you're on the ship. So that was definitely something to get used to. Some people like thrive on ships. They are like, I love the scheduling. I love being told exactly what to do, when to get there. I'm a small business owner. I make my own schedule. I am a performer. So like I am my business. So I like telling myself what to do.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I missed that a little bit.
Do.
Yeah. It runs in my family.
Right. Yeah. So we talked about having dual roles, you know, different jobs. You were a performer, but you also became the kind of the company's vocal coach. Is that right?
Yes. So I was doing that show Prohibition. And once everything kind of went down with people losing their voices, they asked me to step in as vocal captain. So I was in charge of giving voice lessons to all of the girls when I was on the ship, because the majority of them were dancers, like incredible dancers. Right. And luckily, most of them were naturally gifted with singing. It just kind of worked out. And so I would teach voice lessons once a week. And then when I got off the ship, most of the girls who I was working with, they wanted to continue voice lessons, which was really awesome. One of the performers, Morgan Bryant, she ended up booking Mean Girls, the national tour. And then another girl, Marlon, she booked West Side Story on Broadway. And then I was like, yeah, let me do this business full time, because it's working. It's working, and it brings me joy in between auditioning, and it's great.
So you have a website for your vocal coaching and audition training, and people can get in touch with you how?
So you can get in touch with me through email at info@gettingmore.com. You can private message me on Instagram or on Facebook, Getting More Coaching on Instagram and Facebook. And then my website is www.gettingmore.com. With COVID and with the theater industry kind of being on pause right now, I'm using this time to promote vocal health in general. So whether that is public speaking, I'm teaching vocal health for teachers right now, how to teach in the classroom and project properly with a mask on. A lot of these muscles and techniques that singers use, it's the same muscle, so it can be taught to anyone who uses their voice. And then I'm also teaching vocal health for fitness instructors. Yeah, so the fitness world, they especially are going virtually and teaching them how to have proper breath support and speaking, projecting properly when they're moving. I mean, it's no different than doing a dance number and then having to do lines or having to sing. I mean, you wonder why Broadway performers don't lose their voice after a big dance number doing 8 shows a week. And the reason is because they have all this voice training.
All right. I'm looking at your website. And are you doing it online these days, or, you know, with COVID and everything, or do you still have students coming to you?
Yeah, so I'm doing it all virtually. I'm doing Zoom lessons or FaceTime, whatever is most convenient for the student.
And you feel that works for you?
It is totally fine. Of course, I miss the energy of like being with my student in person. Sure. But they still get the same experience where I'm able to have that private, like one-on-one experience with them. And I think that the exercises and the information, I can still relay onto them just as easily as I can in person.
Probably broadens your scope as well. I mean, rather than, you know, physically having someone have to be close to you to get to you,
Yeah.
Now you can kind of do it worldwide.
Yeah, I'm working with a student from England right now. Him and I have been doing voice lessons for the past few weeks. And I'm starting to do a big like teacher vocal health masterclass with teachers in Sarasota. So, obviously it's very convenient for me because I can work with all of these
Right.
these teachers down there and I don't got to go down there. So
Yeah, right. You have an interesting tidbit on your resume.
I do.
I want to ask you about. Yeah. It
Okay.
says that, and I think we have some time. Yeah, we've
Okay.
got some time. We've got 3 seconds. It says that you can do your ABCs backwards in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
As a skill, special skill. ABCs.
I've been
backwards
asked to do that in auditions before. They love it.
I'm going to ask you to do it right now. Can you do it?
Okay. All right. Let me see. Oh, okay. ZYXWBTSRQPON
I'm going to have to slow that down to make sure you got them all. But, well, do it one more time.
I taught myself how to do that in 2nd grade on the school bus. I was super bored, and then I just got faster over time.
How long was your bus ride?
It was long. It was really long. They would take us in a detour. Ask my brother. Ask my sister. We had a whole conversation about this.
Oh, all right. Do it one more time.
Okay. ZYXWBTSRQPONMLKJHGFEDCBA.
That's great. I'm sure you get great reactions when you do that in an audition.
Oh, 100%. They love it. They love it. I don't have much. I can't juggle or anything. So I'm kind of just like, that's what I got for you.
Everybody's got to have a certain skill. So
right.
There you go. That's your identifier.
That's good.
All right. So one more time, let's go circle back and give us some good information for people who are going to go on a cruise ship. Like where is the best place on the ship to have your room?
Yeah. So if you get seasick and motion sickness, your best bet is to be in the center of the ship. Mm-hmm. So find a room in the middle of the ship and higher up. That when like if you talk to an officer or anything, when there's like a big storm, they'll always tell you to go to like the pool deck. Go all the way up into the middle of the ship because the pool is always going to be in the center, in the middle of the ship, all the way on the top. Okay. So that is because I was in the middle of the ship and I never had a problem with motion sickness, which is great. I never really felt the ship move. And the quality of the ship, like the food, the cabins, the common spaces, they're all just so clean and comfy. Yeah. And like the crew members are awesome.
I've been wanting to go on a cruise. Me and my wife have said, we got to do a cruise. I don't get it anymore, but I used to get really bad motion sickness when I was a kid. I couldn't sit still to this day, I can't really sit in the back seat of a car for some reason. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Now that I know some of the insight and behind the scenes stuff, I can look for a lot of that stuff.
Absolutely.
I'll just throw this out because this kind of is similar. When I was working in my corporate life, we had to do a logistics outing, and I was responsible for planning that outing. And so we went to Disney World. There's a whole logistics side of Disney World. There's a whole underground. Disney is on almost like the 2nd floor.
Yeah.
It's raised up so that when the trucks come for delivery, you don't ever see a truck. They go down underground and they deliver it that way. The garbage cans that are around, you never see a guy coming and grabbing the garbage can with a twister and taking it out. And they empty the garbage from below the garbage can. So they open up something and they bring it down. And
wait, I didn't know that.
Shove another one up there. It's all for the experience.
Yeah.
It's very similar to you guys with cruise that you guys, once you did your show, get downstairs and be those bottom dwellers, you guys would be.
Yeah, but it's all for the experience. Yeah, it's all for creating the world for them.
Right. So Disney has sort of the same thing. It's a whole other aspect of the experience that you see from the other side. So good luck in your business as a vocal coach and audition coach. People, if you want to, or if you're interested or you know somebody who wants to learn more about singing, the muscles that work, all that stuff, getting confidence with an audition.
Or speaking in general, vocal health in general.
That's a good point. Good point. So check Lauren out. Here is, we'll put it up here. This is the website to go to, so you can check that out. and get some good information from her and some good teaching as well. She is not only a Penn State grad with a degree in musical theater, but you also, in your younger years, when you were, I don't know how old you were, but I think I remember that you had the opportunity to be in a Broadway show, but chose not to do it.
Yeah.
What was the show? Was it
It was Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins, right?
Yeah.
And you were going to be one of the kids.
Yeah, I was going to be Jane.
Do you ever regret that? Not
No.
saying not doing? No, you don't.
No, that wasn't my time to be on Broadway. Yeah,
Really?
I have more of appreciation for the work that needs to be done before I'm on Broadway, and which I have faith will happen one day.
Yeah.
I needed to have a childhood. I didn't need to be going to New York City every night to do a Broadway show. As much as it would be fun, I needed to be in middle school and hang out with my friends and be a kid.
Good for you.
It's all
good for
good.
you. Yep. Yeah. You definitely got your head on straight. That's awesome. All right. Well, Lauren, we want to thank you for spending time with us and sharing some of your experiences with cruise lines and performing and all that stuff. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Charlie. Have a good one.
All right. Bye. Anyway, that will do it for this edition of the Just Sayin podcast. Make sure that you never miss an episode of the Just Sayin podcast with Charlie Cornacchio by subscribing, or you could also find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any podcast platform that you get your podcasts from, or on YouTube and Facebook for the video version of the podcast. Make sure to download or order my book, How I Met My Mother and the Four Brothers I Never Knew I Had. And you can get that through Barnes & Noble or wherever you download your books. That will do it for this edition. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and be kind. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Just Sayin podcast.